okay, like you've told me you wanted this, how can we make that happen? And then I think you're totally right. Once you start building up those experiences, not only do you have higher confidence in yourself because you can look at your week and be like, look, I summited this mountain, or I did this climb at the gym that I hadn't done before, but you also build confidence in yourself, like, what you would say in psychology, like high self-efficacy, like your belief in your ability to like do what you said you were going to do. So if you set the goal, like I'm going to go backpacking twice this month, then you do that, you just have more belief in yourself, and it's easier to set a goal the next time.
Welcome to the Stokecast, where each week we bring you an inspiring athlete, adventurer, or entrepreneur and dig into their stories and strategies for balancing work, life, and adventure while having fun and making a difference. I'm Jonathan Ronzio.
And I'm Emily Holland. Thanks for joining us today.
Let's get to it. Emily's sick.
Yeah. Yes, I am sick. Better now than I was, but...
What's been going on with your life?
Oh my God. So I'm going to knock on wood, but I don't normally get sick because I drink an emergency. I have vitamins every single day, and I try to really drink a lot of water and eat a lot of greens. And...
I don't drink enough water.
Okay, well, this isn't really about you. It's about me. So...
Okay.
No, but you don't drink enough water, and that's a serious problem that you should fix. But yeah, so it kind of all came crashing down. I think it's just because I'm doing too much, really, but that's going to be happening for the foreseeable future. So I need to figure out a better way of coping. And I am just frustrated because I'm so freaking tired. Just going up the stairs yesterday at my house, I was winded, and I'm training for a trail marathon next weekend.
I mean, you're working a day job. You're training for a marathon. You're
doing a digital marketing certification. We do this podcast, and then I tried to keep some semblance of my romantic and personal relationships intact. And I also have a dog, so things are good.
So how do you balance work life and adventure while having fun and making a difference?
I don't know much of a difference I'm making with this sick voice, but I've been better at it than I've been recently. A lot of our guests talk about how this project came up, and so then obviously certain things I've had to sacrifice because of that. And lately I've been feeling like my friends have been sacrificed. So I haven't spent as much time with my friends, or I haven't spent as much time with my sister who I live with. You'd think I'd spend more time. And so now I'm back at okay, I'm going to spend more time with my friends, but then other things kind of fall. So it's an everlasting challenge. I'll always be challenged by it. But I never feel like everything's all happening perfectly. It's always just a little bit of a sacrifice here, a little bit of sacrifice here. Thankfully, I have a great support system with my sister and her husband and my boyfriend who will help me with stuff if they see I'm drowning.
I don't think anything ever happens perfectly. I think that perfect is a mirage, and
mirage.
Yes, the thing in the desert that looks like paradise, and you get to, and then you're just coughing on sand.
It just reminds me of maybe a big hotel in Vegas or something like that. The Mirage.
Oh yes, or that too.
Okay, so these antibiotics are also making me insane, I guess. Here we are. So, it is a mirage. Tell me how it's a mirage.
No, I just think that whatever perfection you're after, whether it's in work or in your relationship or in how much adventure you can cram into your life or whatever that is, or the balance of it all, I think that, I mean, how many episodes in are we now? We know that there's no such thing, right?
Yeah.
We can do our best to figure out the strategies based on distilling other people's stories or our own experiences of how we manage to do all the things that we do in all the different categories of our lives. But I think that there is never a perfect balance at any time. And I think it's just ebbs and flows. It's a constant up and down or push and pull of different things. And sometimes you try and do too much and it gets to you. And you have been sick, right? But I do think that there is a quality to, it's either you're 110% or you're totally broken, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I am all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just constantly go, 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 so energetic and like passionate and optimistic all the time. Or if I have a cold, you would think that I was dying.
Well, that's like a man thing.
It is
too.
a man thing, I know.
It's like,
but
my doctor literally yesterday was like, it's so funny when my husband thinks he's sick and he wants me to touch his glands, and I'm like, you're not sick, you just have a little sniffle. I'm like, yes.
But
anyways, back to you.
I think there is a good quality in terms of like trying to do it all. And the people who take on that much, I mean, it speaks volumes about what you're willing to, how much work you're willing to put in, really. Like if you are burning both ends of the candle or whatever, right? Isn't that the expression?
Yeah, I've said that a lot recently over the past 2 days.
You just have to hope that once the fire meets in the middle that there's a sparkler, right?
Ooh, cool. I like that visual. Yeah, no, I do feel like at least it's gotten easier as I've gotten older, figuring out like what makes sense. But yes, I'm really sick of being sick and sick of being tired. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Especially because I'm going to Red River Gorge for the first time this weekend. I feel so weak. I feel like so burned down, but you know what? I'm still going to have a great time. It's supposed to be like 80 degrees and sunny and beautiful. And next weekend we have a trail marathon, and I'm just going to give it my best go and just hope it goes well.
That's all you can do. So, I mean, when you have that many things on your plate, often that means that you are in a transition period or leading up to a transition period, right? Which is kind of what I'm doing with the words that I'm saying right now, but also leading up to who we're talking to, who is a transition coach, a life coach. It's just super inspiring person who is
Sanni McCandless. She is amazing. When she was talking, I felt like she was talking to my spirit. And I was like, I need someone like this in my life to like help guide me in certain things that I want to do that I'm just like either don't have the time really, or like just cannot put one foot in front of the other to actually go towards. And she talks a lot about her transition into that space and how she's like built out this business and the things that she's learned along the way. It was an awesome conversation. And
she's also one of the co-founders of the Outwild Festival.
Yes, which is coming up in the first weekend in November is the actual festival. But actually, on October 12th, the ticket sales are over. So if you're going to go, if you're looking into it, which I definitely recommend, it sounds freaking rad. And there's going to be some great speakers and random people there that'll help you get through this transition. Go check it out. We'll put it in the show notes, of course, outwild.co. And the ticket sales are going to end on the 12th. So you got to get them now, really.
There's an urgency to it.
There's an urgency.
All right, and I know we've gone a little long in this little intro here, so there's an urgency into introing Sanni. So enjoy this episode with Sanni McCandless. So we are here today with Sanni McCandless. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me, Emily and Jonathan. I'm doing well.
Yes, we are psyched to have you.
Definitely. This is going to be fun.
I hope so.
Jonathan's psyched over here. He has his sparkling water. He's ready to go.
I'm a sparkling kind of guy.
So, we want to dive into all the incredible work you're doing now. But I think we would be remiss if we didn't start with the beginning, right? Where did this journey all start for you and you working for yourself, being a life coach, a transition coach, and getting into building out festivals? Where did that all begin?
Yeah, gosh, where did it all begin? It feels like a really long time ago, but in reality, it's actually, a lot of this unfolded just in the last couple of years for me. I studied psychology in school, and I always wanted to do something with that, and I was always sort of like, is it therapy? Is it counseling? Like, what is it? And then I stumbled upon life coaching, and I just for some reason, I just couldn't work up the nerve to really go in that direction. I was like, I'm not ready. I don't, I need more training. And then I went and worked in marketing for a couple years and then took some time off for a while. And then I was still sort of like, what's the next thing for me? What's the next thing for me? What is this, career path that I want to start going down? And I was talking to a friend who's a coach, and I was kind of telling her about some of my concerns. And I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm old enough. I feel like I need more life experience to be a life coach, right?
Yeah.
Duh, like that makes sense. And she told me, she was like, well, the thing about coaching is that it's not advice driven. You're not there to tell somebody how you did life or what you think they should do or how you would, answer their greatest life questions. You're there to give them perspective, ask them the right questions, give them a foundation for seeing their own life differently, and help them figure out what's best for them. And, the idea that you might get some knowledge that's going to, work for everyone just isn't ever going to happen. And so she was like, your age just doesn't matter. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
That's a great coach for you in your life coaching journey.
Exactly. So I ended up going through a certification program and starting my company. And yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the end.
Well, so yeah, I mean, the best coaches are really just the best listeners that ask the right questions, right? And you don't have to be at the top of the mountain. You just have to be a few steps in front of whoever is looking up to you.
Ooh, metaphors.
I like that.
Write that down for the website.
Right. Well, so you said you were working in marketing, and then you took some time off for a little while, and then you got into coaching. But that in and of itself, that 3-step process is something that so many people don't. They're once you get into doing that thing, the one thing, or you take that job out of college or whatever it is, people so often just like stay stuck in that route. What was it within you that made you comfortable taking those leaps and saying like, I'm okay transitioning from this marketing job or this career, or you were doing one thing and then going to the other? What made change okay for you?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I mean, I think a lot of stars aligned. I mean, first there's a certain amount of privilege that comes with taking time off like that. And so, I had found myself in a situation where I had a really affordable college education. And then I got a job out of college that allowed me to pay off my student loans and kind of accumulate a little bit of savings. So, that's definitely one part of it. But I think it was kind of, the other component of it is a mindset. And the mindset was always, I think it's, in a ways, I always kind of jokingly call it like the European mindset, because I think it's much more common in other countries to take long periods of time off between jobs. And when you travel, you meet a lot of people who, are just like, oh, I'm traveling this year, and then I'm going to go back to work. And that's just a much more accepted part of the culture. And so I think I always just had that mindset of like, it's okay to step away from something, go explore, and come back. As long as you can do it in a responsible way and in a way that makes sense for you, like that's okay. And there's a lot of limiting beliefs, I think, out there that say, oh, if there's a gap in your resume, you're never going to get hired again. And, oh, like, how are you going to explain that year without a job? And it's just not what's important. And at the end of the day, if you tell a compelling story about the way you've chosen to live your life, like that's what people will believe. So I decided to take that time off. And then in terms of just how I saw the whole process unfolding, when I left, I didn't know what the step was going to be after my year off. I didn't know what the next job was going to be. But what I did know is that I would be remiss if I acted like that year wasn't going to change me. And that, by taking that time and giving myself that space, I was going to be meeting new people and growing as a person and learning new things about myself and learning about, careers I didn't even know existed beforehand. And so just kind of letting that space unfold, and it kind of worked how I hoped, which was I took that time off and I had a lot of conversations with people about a lot of different careers. And then, I had that conversation around coaching and got to come back to it.
I think that's great. And I like that you acknowledge up front the privilege piece, of course, and we always want to be cognizant of that. But one thing that I find interesting about that time off is that it seems so intentional, right? That you're still making waves or making moves in quote unquote the right direction for you. You're trying to figure out that landscape. So in going about having conversations around different careers, like what was your process in seeking out those types of people, be they mentors or coaches or just people that are in roles that you are interested in? What was that process like?
Actually, yeah, no, I think it was more literally just having conversations all the time with anyone and everyone. I think, I wish that there was, some easy plugin that's like, if you do 5 informational interviews with 5 people in jobs you're interested in, you will. But I think it's more that it's almost talking to the people that you never would have thought to talk to, or that maybe you never would have met had you not been in this kind of different situation. Or those are the conversations where you actually get information you didn't have before, and you learn about the careers you didn't know existed before, or you make the connections that you didn't have before. And so it's really just having conversations all the time, always bring up, oh, this is something I think is cool. What do you do? Oh, like, how do you feel about the balance in your life? Well, this is something that I'm interested in. And then the next thing you know, that person's like, well, actually, I've got a friend who lives out here and I should connect you guys. And it's just kind of believing in that power of connection that I think sometimes we lose with technology. We forget we can just talk to people about things and get ideas that way.
Yeah, and I would even say too, like, even if you're not in that space of taking some time off, even when you have a job maybe that you like or that you're trying to see what else is out there, it's always good to be open to those opportunities too.
Oh, yeah. I do a lot of career coaching in my job, and it often comes down to this question of, like, do I know about the thing that I'm going to want to do? Like, is it a career I've already heard of, or is it something I don't even know exists yet? And to answer that question, to decide, okay, is it something I've already considered, like nurse or software developer or whatever, then, or is it something I've never even heard of yet? I think a big part of that is the conversation piece, and just being willing to say, to figure that out, it's really helpful to just kind of do your research, but research through conversation.
So you touched on this and when you were kind of spinning off examples, but how do you feel about the balance in your life?
I feel, well, actually, right now I feel not quite as good about it as I usually do. This summer I actually started a second business, and it was kind of an extension of my coaching business, but in a group setting. So instead of doing coaching one-on-one, doing it in the workshop and retreat and festival space. And so I teamed up with my co-founders, Jeremy Jensen and Courtney Sanford. Jeremy actually has a podcast as well that's called The Adventurepreneur Playbook. And we decided to kind of start this more event-based business, but still around, helping people lead more outdoor and value-driven lifestyles. And as it turns out, that business is so far a lot more time-consuming than I originally planned. But I also think it's a type of situation where I'm willing to put in the work now if in sometime down the road, I do have that better balance.
Is that from a life and work and, relationship and adventure? Like, are you hitting all the marks that you're striving for? Or are you kind of sacrificing one for the other right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all still pretty balanced. It's just been, it's been hard recently because Alex's my partner has a documentary out right now, and that's sort of like this huge amount of time and energy that is wonderful, but I didn't necessarily plan for as well as I could have probably, because you just really don't know what it's going to be like for your partner to release a documentary until it happens.
And a documentary at that scale, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So that's kind of another component. And I think all the pieces are there. The cool thing about the name of the company is Outwild. The cool thing about Outwild for me is that it's providing balance in my career. it might not be creating balance in my life right now, but my doing one-on-one coaching is wonderful, but it's very like, it's just you and one other person, and you're talking with different people every week, and you don't get that group energy. And I was really missing that. And I was really missing working with coworkers, having that sort of relationship, those sorts of relationships in my life as well. So it's, it might be throwing off the balance in some areas, but it's also creating balance in others.
Yeah.
I hear you. I mean, for like the last 4 years, I got to say, I've been doing, I left the traditional work life behind and was doing my own thing. And by all appearances, it seemed amazing, but it was also very lonely. It was just a one-man show in terms of all the aspects of my work life. And it wasn't until the past year where I started, working with some other writers, and then, working with Emily on the Stokecast, that like, right? Yeah, you're a big part of solving my loneliness, Emily.
Oh, God, that's a lot of pressure.
No, but that is it's so important to call that out, that so many careers, not just in the outdoor space, but as like, I guess, digital nomads, people are aspiring to be a digital nomad and be location independent and like work from wherever off their laptop. But like the reality of that is you do give up that social environment of being in a company with facilitated interactions.
Absolutely. And one of the things I often tell my clients and myself is that, I don't think balance is ever something that you just like, you don't like achieve it and then it's there forever.
Yeah.
I think balance is more of a concept. It's like knowing when it is you feel balance and then being able to come back to that, being able to say, okay, yeah, maybe I'm going to spend a lot of time on the road, and that's going to help me achieve these things. And then I'm going to come back to balance in a different way. And I'm going to have more connection and slightly more work. And it's kind of, it's just something you come back to. It's not something that you fail at or have all the time. It's kind of your own awareness of when and how you do best.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes, maybe you can relate to this too, is that you look back at certain periods of your life or chunks of months at a time, and you're like, oh, there's this factor that I should probably get back to because it seemed like I was feeling life like much more at that time, or I felt like I was more productive during that period of time, and that, those types of things. So I think looking back and seeing, okay, what are the factors that have made me a more happy, productive, helpful human being,
right?
And I'm sure you talk a lot about that in your coaching as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was this month in college where I did no sugar, and I swear that's the best I've ever felt. And I have to go back to that.
I know. Aren't those funny that when you think of like, oh, I gave up bread for that summer, and it was like, I felt so amazing.
But yet the question is, why don't you continue no bread or no sugar, right? It's like we do these little experiments, and we're like, oh, it was so transformational, and I felt great. And then we just like, yeah, but it was this like, this thing that is now in my past, and we don't continue with it, and now I just want a donut, right? Now I want bread and sugar.
Yeah.
Right. I do think, though, I mean, I was talking about this with someone recently, but I'm a really big fan of like 30-day challenges. I think they're a really awesome way to kind of, create a new habit or focus on something for a period of time. And the good news is that even if you don't keep it up forever, you just have an awareness of it that you didn't have before. And it's much easier to pick back up after you've done it once. And even, like with something like no sugar, maybe you don't do no sugar forever, but the months after that time period, you're probably eating slightly less sugar just because you're aware of it. It's almost like you create a more sustainable version of the habit, hopefully.
I'm a huge fan of that. Those little science experiments for your body or your mind, whether it's, I did 60 days no alcohol over the summer as like a thing in that same vein, and it was fantastic. And I'm a big fan of the 30 or 60 day or even 2 weeks. I mean, something like trying to go plant-based for 2 weeks. It's impactful because you do learn something.
Exactly. Yeah. Inevitably, something new about yourself by the end.
So speaking of learning something new about yourself, how when you were making that transition into, this new career, this coaching lifestyle, how did you include adventure or the outdoors as a component of that? How did that become part of your story?
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, I always think there's like a couple different ways to do it, right? Like maybe you make your career the adventure, like you do guiding, or you get outside for a living, or something like that. Or, the other way to do it is kind of to create a career that allows you the free time or the access to the outdoors that you want. And I think in my case, I kind of went the route of outdoor adventure is never going to be my career, but I want a career that allows me to have more outdoor adventure. And so coaching is a really cool opportunity because I can create my own schedule. I can take on more or fewer clients as I feel like I need to. And it just allows me a more transient lifestyle. I usually live in the van with my partner during the summers and live at home in Vegas during the winter. And so I can just get outside more and see new places more easily.
So as a transition coach, you're obviously helping people, develop confidence to step into new changes in their life. Do you feel like your experience in the outdoors plays a part in what you're able to teach them, or do you bring anybody into the outdoors to kind of facilitate confidence through outdoor inspiration or through overcoming any adventure obstacles, anything like that?
Yeah, well, actually, so a huge kind of my life coaching niche is definitely people who want the outdoors to be a bigger part of their lifestyle. So usually my clients are coming to me with some sort of idea in mind. Like maybe they want a career that's based around the outdoors, or maybe they want to like learn how to rock climb, or maybe they want to just have running and biking and camping be a part of their normal life, and they feel like they don't have that right now. So I think they kind of already have the desire, and then it's just about finding ways for them to actually implement that into their routine. Like, okay, like you've told me you wanted this, how can we make that happen? And then I think you're totally right. Once you start building up those experiences, not only do you have higher confidence in yourself because you can look at your week and be like, look, I summited this mountain, or I did this climb at the gym that I hadn't done before, but you also build confidence in yourself, like, what you would say in psychology, like high self-efficacy, like your belief in your ability to like do what you said you were going to do. So if you set the goal, like I'm going to go backpacking twice this month, then you do that, you just have more belief in yourself, and it's easier to set a goal the next time.
Oh my gosh, that's really speaking to my lack of gym time lately. I need to really get back to that.
You've been sick. It's all right. You've been training for a marathon. Yeah. You don't need to be in the gym.
All right. Yeah, you're really building me up during this interview.
Sick and training for a marathon. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's been real fun. So I think thinking of confidence, so was there any hard lessons learned? I think before we were recording, you mentioned, coaching really came easy to me. It felt easy to, maybe not easy, but yeah, simple to build that up because it seems like a natural progression for my personality and what I went to school for and that type of stuff. But were there any, I guess, hard-hitting lessons or, big failures that you had in those initial couple months or even a year where you felt, wow, maybe this wasn't the right choice, or lessons learned?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first of all, I just think like just starting Outwild has been a really wonderful experience in kind of pushing my comfort zone with how many new things am I trying at once? And, how much time do I have during the day, and how many balls am I trying to juggle at once, and just like pushing myself and kind of seeing where that edge is. And I think it's really easy to identify something as like, oh, well, this thing failed, or this, this didn't work out, or I missed the mark on this. But I think one of the things I've been trying to think about is, how would I describe this experience, 15 or 20 or 30 years from now? And just saying, 30 years from now, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that made so much sense. I totally needed to learn that lesson. Or, oh yeah, that happened. And actually it felt like a failure at the time, but it kind of let me into all these other things. And it's a nice reminder that things that feel so big in the moment, um, just are completely 100% part of the process. And I think with starting a business, I mean, it's a really nice, like climbing is always the best life metaphor. Even climbing,
Preach.
you spend like 90% of your time failing. You don't spend, I mean, unless you only do routes at your, like at your ability level, usually you're pushing yourself a little bit and you're falling off things and falling off things and falling off things until you do it. And it's funny because we talk about success so much, but we go to the gym even on the days where we don't send anything and we still have a great time. Yeah. And so I think I've been trying to kind of apply that mindset to starting a second business and just being like, you know what, like this is part of the process. It's not a failure. It's just an opportunity to test myself.
Get a little bit better every time.
Exactly.
But so that ability to be able to like kind of take a breath and take a step back and think like, hey, in 20 or 30 years, this is going to be just, one of those things. And like the ability to take that step back and reflect and not be so upfront emotionally reactive, that is a really tricky thing for a lot of people. Like how does somebody learn to not be so invested emotionally to something that might feel like a failure or a bump in the road at the time and be able to take that breath and say like, this is just one of those things.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I don't know that it's ever an easy thing. I think it can definitely be tricky. I mean, my first thought was that, I mean, I really do genuinely have like there is a picture in my mind of my 90-year-old self, and I feel like I talk with her, not the person, but I feel like I chat with her, and my 90-year-old self just really doesn't care. Like they're just like, oh, whatever. Like that's so small. That was so long ago. Like you're going to be fine. It's going to work out. Like you're going to move forward. And it's just that attitude of like, there's so much life, ahead of me, and there's going to be all sorts of different ups and downs, and just knowing that that's part of it. Like it can, and allowing yourself to have that emotional reaction. Like I don't think it ever helps to be like, I shouldn't feel this way, or I should see this as it. Like, I mean, just being like, oh wow, this is how I feel about it, and that's okay. And now am I ready to move forward yet? But I think just that combination of kind of validating your own feelings and saying it's probably pretty understandable that this is stressful, or it's probably pretty understandable that I'm feeling impatient right now, or whatever it is. And then that, combined with your 90-year-old grandma voice in your head is really powerful.
I love the 90-year-old grandma voice. That's such a little like perfect life hack, because I can specifically picture my grandma just being like so nonchalant and carefree. I'm sure so many people can think of their grandparents like that, and just be able to picture themselves in that moment and be like like what 90-year-olds walk into the room, and my grandma used to say like if she'd just fart and everybody would like look at her and she'd be like, better an empty house than a bad tenant.
Oh my gosh, Grody.
So
Grandma.
That's a perfect visualization exercise to say like, be more carefree.
Yeah. But not even that. Like I had a friend who said to me, here's the test. If you're making a decision, even if it's a small one, and you're like going back and forth, whether it's like your limiting belief that's getting in your way or whatever it is, just always think about, if you're on your deathbed, are you going to be happy that you did that? Or are you going to be sad that you did that? Are you going to be happy that you like went to that party or whatever it is, or are you going to be happy that you quit your job and did what you really wanted to do? I think about that all the time. It's, a really good visual for me too. So that's we're on the same page with the old people thing.
So speaking of quit your job, what were you doing in that marketing role? What was that job you walked away from?
So I worked for a company called Energy Savvy, and at the time they were sort of specializing in software that helped utilities run their energy efficiency programs. And I was on a 3-person marketing team. So it was basically, just the range of marketing, tasks that you can imagine, but communication with potential customers, email outreach, going to conferences, things like that.
So what do you think were the most impactful or beneficial skills that you took away from that experience that laddered up to building your successful coaching business?
I had a really good boss at that job, and he was not necessarily always very like easy on me. He definitely did not just like let things slide through. He was very much like every time I wrote something, he just had this eye for like, well, how does the audience see that? How does that feel to them? How are they going to read that? And just constantly making sure you're seeing things from multiple angles and really thinking about all the different perspectives and priding yourself on high quality content and not putting things out that you half-assed or didn't really think through. And I don't know. I think I have his voice in my head a lot as well. It sounds crowded in there. But I think it just taught me some attention to detail that I didn't have before. In general, I'm very much I have an idea. I'm going to charge forward. I'm halfway through it and realizing it might have been a bad idea type of person. I'm definitely I don't err on the side of taking things slow. I definitely err on the side of diving in head first. And I think that attention to detail kind of allows me to, maintain who I am, dive into things wholeheartedly, but also with that kind of that eye for, I don't know, how other people are going to see it.
Yeah, well, it's super important, especially being a life coach, I would imagine. You need to obviously craft your words very carefully and make sure that they are sticking with the person that you're working with. So, speaking of the life coaching business, so can you tell us a little bit about how you generally work with your clients? So Jonathan asked about bringing them into the outdoors, but what is the format in working with a client?
Yeah, definitely. So coaching in general for me in my practice is half internal and half external. And the internal side of things is to basically, the internal side kind of has two parts. The first part is to kind of start thinking about the stories that you tell yourself, and to become more mindful of them. And so it's this idea that when we go through life, we are constantly creating stories about the things that are going on around us. So for instance, let's say somebody, cuts me off on the road. I could tell the story oh, wow, that person's in a hurry, or I could tell the story of this is just proof that the world is filled with narcissistic a-holes and nobody cares about anyone anymore. And that's a choice, right? Reality didn't change. The guy cut me off, but the way I interpreted that event dramatically changes how I go through the rest of my day. And so just kind of taking a closer look at what are the stories you're telling yourself, and are those stories working for you? So that's one part of the internal side. The other part of the internal side is just really obvious, basic questions what is it that you want from life? There's crazy statistics out there about how often people actually sit down and reflect on what they want. And it is shockingly low. It's we just go from step to step to step that makes sense and gets planted in front of us without ever questioning, is this who I am and what I want from life? And so asking those questions of what makes you happy? Where do you find purpose? What do you value in life? And then the external side is saying, okay, well, you told me you want X, Y, Z in 6 months. So where do you need to be in 3 months? And where do you need to be in 1 month? And where do you want to be by the end of next week? And really just actually coming up with a concrete plan to move forward.
My gosh. Okay, I think we need to figure something out here because I need that.
Are you taking on new clients?
Can you take me on?
A couple episodes back, I think we ended after talking to Sarah Heron, and we were like, all right, Emily is saying she needs a life coach.
And now here she is. Just perfect. Well, that's great. Obviously, a lot of what we think we can control is always external, right? Because that seems to be the easier stuff that you can control. What am I doing with my day-to-day that I can change, that I can make better? But it's always the scarier stuff that the internal stuff turns out to be. And probably the harder. Do you find that it's a harder process to go through the internal ins and outs versus the external?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I think the internal process is like it takes more attention and more focus, maybe. But I also think the interesting thing about external factors is that it's really easy to say yes to them. It's really easy to be like, yeah, I'm going to do that and that and that, and then I'll be good. But they actually, like for instance, if I wanted to start a business and I have a core thought that starting a business is really hard work and it's most likely to fail. Just if you looked at stats of how many people start businesses, well, it's most likely to fail. And that's my core thought going into something. I can set to do items till kingdom come. I can make lists and say I'm going to do all these things, but it's probably not going to happen. Like if that's what I think about starting a business. And so it can be easy, but I think it requires making sure you have that really hearty mindset and like, okay, like what do I want to focus on going into this? Like instead of focusing on this is going to be really hard, maybe I want to focus on I'm really good at getting things done when I set my mind to it. Or, like in the past, I've really thrived when I have a new project on my plate or something like that.
So, without breaking any, obviously any client confidentiality, like, are there? Can you think of any like most common obstacles or issues that people have come to you with that, like, whether it was about, intimacy or connection in their relationship, or about productivity and follow through in their business, or just like following through on their bucket list or something? There are probably a couple common denominators across the board that once you unlock those, the rest fall into place. Like, can you point anything out there?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, off the top of my head, I think there's a couple big ones. I mean, I think in general, one of the biggest kind of internal factors that trips people up is some version of like, I am not like I am not enough to do this, or like I am not the person who's going to succeed at this. Like that's not me. Just some unwillingness to see yourself differently and to say, I could be the person that takes time off, or I could be the person that, takes up goes on a sunrise hike before my 9 to 5 starts, or I could be the person that goes bouldering alone. Like maybe, who knows what it is, but just kind of being willing to play with your identity a little bit instead of being so stuck in some story of who you are that isn't working for you. So that's one thing that comes to mind. I mean, I think another really obvious one is financial barriers to change, just being afraid of even considering change, right? Just being like, well, I can't consider another job. Like nothing's going to pay me as much as I'm making now. Or I can't consider, taking time off between careers because I'll be homeless and starving on the streets. And I think finances are super important. And I think one of the things that people misconstrue is this idea that like living a passionate lifestyle is the same as living an irresponsible lifestyle. And I would say the opposite, which is like we can be very practical about our passion. We can, if you want to take time off, like it's okay if you're not ready right now. Like it's okay if you don't have the finances right now, but let's work towards that. What are you willing to deprioritize in order to prioritize saving money so that one day you could take that trip? Or, what are you, if maybe there's some thought like, I'm never going to find a job that pays as well. Like, okay, that's something you've chosen to believe. Are you willing to actually explore that a little bit further? Are you sure that's what's true? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it might be worth putting some time and energy into finding out. So just kind of treating those financial questions with like a very calm and practical mindset.
I'm just smirking because you're speaking to me right now. Jonathan's like keeps looking at me every time you say a sentence.
Okay.
It's resonating.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of life coaching is very specific to the individual and internal, but at the same time, here you are transitioning into the festival route as a component of what you're doing. So to what degree, like how important is connecting within a community to extending that cultivation of confidence and creativity.
Oh yeah. Ooh, I like how you phrased that.
If you listen to any past episodes, you'll find that I'm a sucker for alliteration.
Well, I don't think you like, I would hate to put so much weight into community and connection that if people don't have a community, they feel like they can't go do something. Like, I think that's often a barrier to entry. Like, I can't go to the climbing gym. I don't know anyone who climbs, or I can't go hiking because I couldn't find anyone to go hiking with me. Right. I mean, like, I don't think it has to be a huge focus. Like, it doesn't have to be present, but at the same time, like, it's obviously really fun to do things with other people who enjoy the same stuff. And I think that there's something to be said for sitting in a circle and just hearing other people say like a lot of the same concerns that maybe you have, or dealing with a lot of the same issues that you have, or fears that you have. There's just something really, it simultaneously validates you, like, oh, it's okay that I feel that way. And also kind of helps you, picture moving past that and being like, oh, well, maybe if we all have that problem, A, it's okay that that's hard for us. And B, I bet we can come up with something to move past that, to fix that or whatever. So I think it's really fun. I think it's really nice to have the combination of both. Like like doing some things in the group setting where you're just like, there's so much more energy and like you said, connection and friendship and community, and then doing some things on your own and making sure you have that time and place to reflect and really think about what it is that you want outside influence.
Yeah. And so from this festival for Outwild, what are you hoping that people take away from it?
Yeah. Oh, so many things. I have so many hopes and dreams for Outwild, but I think one of the biggest things is is kind of what I just described, that feeling of showing up and saying, wow, look at all these people who want the outdoors to be a bigger part of their life and are just wondering how to do that. From maybe the person who is, an athlete already, but still is struggling to find that balance, to the person who has never gone on a hike and is actually just looking for a community to do that with, just no matter where you are, having that be at the forefront of your mind, like, oh, I want to make this a bigger priority. So I'm really hoping people get that sense of connection, that sense of community. And then, I think something that's important to me is, and something that I really want to be specific and unique about Outwild, is that it's not just showing up and listening to inspiring talks and getting inspired and hearing about all the great things you can do in your life. Like, it's about actually coming away with takeaways and saying, okay, yeah, I was inspired by this one speaker. That was really cool. But I also took this workshop on how to change your career path, or how to pursue this outdoor goal that I have, and actually have, a notebook that says, okay, this is kind of my timeline. This is where I want to start. This is how I'm going to go about doing it. These are the people that I met at the festival who I'm going to email in a month and be like, guys, I'm actually making this happen and I'm really excited. How are you doing? How can I help hold you accountable? So, I could probably drone on for many hours about what I hope people take from Outwild, but those are okay.
No, that's great. I'd love to hear a little about the format of the event and kind of how you're facilitating the attendee journey and like mapping out those experiences and takeaways.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm so glad you asked, because we posted our schedule today.
All right.
Ooh, exciting.
Online, as well as the workshop descriptions. It's all slightly subject to change, but basically the platform is there. And it's kind of set up how you would imagine a retreat would be set up. So you wake up, there's morning yoga, you go to breakfast, you eat breakfast together, you maybe do some, getting to know you exercises, you meet the people in the room, then you listen to a speaker, maybe that person is talking about life design or some version of how they got to where they are today. And then you break into workshops, and then the workshops are they're kind of divvied up into two different groups: people who want to change their career to be more outdoor focused or allow them to get outside more, and people who just want the outdoors to be a bigger part of the life they're already living. So, you kind of pick your workshop according to what you want. And then the afternoon is kind of dedicated to workshops like creative writing, meditation, things like that. There's always the option in the afternoon to just like dip out, go do some outdoor rec in the area that you're excited about, like go climbing, go to the beach, go on a hike, whatever it is. And then coming back in the evening and having dinner together and hearing speakers and, watching a movie together, things like that.
So it's very much choose your own adventure at different parts, but there is some, overall curated experience.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely want people to feel like they could kind of control their weekend.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So thinking about your, life coaching or transition coaching and then Outwild as well, when you first started down this journey or maybe now, did you have like a long-term vision for what you hope it can someday be? Is there like a 5-year to 10-year plan for you, or is it kind of startup-y, like you mentioned before we were recording, where you're kind of figuring it out as you go and trying to learn lessons fast and fail fast and figure it out? Like, what does that look like for you?
Fail fast and cheap, right? That's
yeah.
what they are.
Yes.
I don't know that I'm failing cheap, but I might fail fast. No, I mean, I have a couple different thoughts about where Outwild can go. I mean, I'm really hoping that we maintain this annual festival feel. I want one day people to be like, oh, are you going to Outwild this year? Like, yeah, I am, things like that. I mean, not to compare it to Coachella or Burning Man, but I dream big, so.
I like it.
But, so this idea of like this event that you can go to if that's something you need in your life. But I think there's also a lot of, ideally, I also want it to be a resource for people who are trying to make this transition. I mean, something I say all the time is that there's definitely this growing movement in the outdoor space. And I think it's largely social media driven. You see people living out of their car or doing dawn patrol hikes, or, you see more documentation of things like through hiking. And I mean, there's just a lot of, photos and kind of, interesting visuals around this other way of living your life. And I think a lot of people look at all these pictures and they see all of these different posts and they're like, wow, I want that for my life. I want that to be a bigger thing. And I have no idea how to do that. I just don't even know where to start. And maybe nobody I know even does anything like that. Maybe my friends have totally different priorities and I just really don't know how to step into this space. So I really want it one day to be like a fully fledged resource system, somewhere where you can go to maybe find a coach or find a trainer or like learn about jobs in the outdoor industry. And we have a little bit of that right now. Like we have a resource page with all these different outdoor job listings and things like that. But kind of just be able to just be a one-stop shop for kind of making that transition. So that's one vision. I mean, we've also talked about like, oh, it would be so cool if there were like Outwild chapters and you could, do like a meetup with people in your area who are trying to, who are also trying to make changes like you are.
So I'm curious, as you started with your personal brand and now with the Outwild brand, like how you've gone about marketing this, how you went about generating interest in attending the festival or putting yourself out there and getting clients as a coach. Like what have been some of your marketing tactics that have worked the best for you?
Yeah, marketing is such an interesting thing. I mean, most of our marketing is social media driven. So, and largely meaning Instagram and a little bit of Facebook. But for me, I do a decent amount of just referrals. And once I work with somebody, just letting them know like, hey, like if this worked well for you, let your friends know, let your family know. And, even for the festival, like a lot of my, I have quite a few clients showing up, people I've worked with who are like, oh, I love this. And I totally want to do this in groups. That sounds great, So I think it's just kind of that natural word of mouth spread combined with social media. And, I've done a little bit of the like flyers and things like that. But in general, hanging up flyers is just not that effective.
not as good as an Instagram post.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I do feel sad when I go to the climbing gym and I see they still have a bulletin board, and I'm like, oh, who looks at this? No one looks at this. Come on.
Like unless you're the flyer on the back of the bathroom door, it's just
Right.
really hard to be seen.
I have to look at you.
That's a good location, I guess. Prime real estate.
For ladies, a little bit more so, probably. For
guys, it's like right above the urinal. Really.
I love how we've talked about farts in urinals on this
perfect.
podcast, so that's good.
So, two questions. One of them is just, what has been, like, if this is top of mind for you, what has been something that has been so uncomfortable or pushed you out of your comfort zone, or that has made you a little scared recently?
That's a good question. What has pushed me out of my comfort zone recently? Probably the biggest and most obvious thing for me right now is that a huge part of my partner's documentary, a part of it is pretty intimate details about our relationship. And it's funny because as somebody who's, very much into the outdoors, when people talk about pushing my comfort zone, I usually almost immediately go to like a climb I did that made me scared, or like some sort of outdoor rec that pushed my limits a little bit. But actually this summer, I think the biggest challenge for me has been the vulnerability involved with having, what feels like, but isn't, but feels like the whole world looking, like I said, at these intimate moments in my love life, and to relive like what was a pretty intense experience for me on screen. So that's been, it's just been hard. It's been really hard for me. I think the hardest part is that, everybody takes something different away from the film. And, most people take away really positive things, and that's really good. But ultimately, I can't control, what people think of me when they watch the film, what they think of me as a climber, what they think of me as a person, what they think of me as a girlfriend. And, I've always been somebody who cares a lot about what other people think. And I joke that I'm like, the one thing I struggle with most in life, the universe really handed to me in spades. But I think it's just been hard to let go, and just to be able to say people are going to think things that aren't true, and that's okay.
Yeah, I can't imagine being in that amount of limelight, especially because I think probably up until that point, there wasn't really, obviously you were marketing yourself, but you weren't like at that stage of having that many people see what your life was like. But I imagine there was some moments of lessons learned in that as well. It's still going on, of course, but is there any moments that you got, some really incredible feedback, or something happened where it made you realize that experience was actually going to help you move forward in a positive way?
No.
Yes
and no. It is. There are. I think the biggest one recently, and it's not something that I've heard for the first time. This is something that when I kind of walked into the relationship that I'm in, this is something that I've been hearing over and over from my partner, that is like, that I think is finally really starting to ring true, and I'm really starting to believe. But the idea that, what ultimately matters is, what do I think of myself? Am I happy with who I am? What do my friends think of me? What do my family think of me? What does my partner think of me? Like, those are things that matter. And, people I've never met, like, their opinion of me, it just isn't that important.
Yeah.
And, it's easy to tell the story that it is, but it just isn't. Largely because you can't control it. So deciding that it's important mostly just means you're going to suffer. But just because, those aren't the people you're connecting with. They're not the people you love. They're not the people that you're playing outside with. And so just that constant reminder of like, well, what's important to me, and whose opinion do I care about? And just really starting to believe, to zero in on who really does matter to you.
Right, and that can hold you back in so many ways too. Like, how many times maybe I'm speaking for myself, but how many times have I been at the crag or been on a long run, and I'm like embarrassed or worried about what people are going to think of me, like not finishing something or like not sending something, whatever it is, and that holds you back in so many arenas, and it's hard to remember, but so true that it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Like
you care more than anyone ever will.
Yeah.
But you know what? Those experiences, like what you have experienced in putting yourself and your relationship out there in this film in a big way, they're there to, you know, to teach you, and that's your couple steps in front of whoever is behind you, right? Like to bring it back to that metaphor.
And other people can learn from it, so it's also really selfless. Like, you know, obviously we have yet to see it, but we will be soon. But, you know, other people can take away from it and learn from it for their own lives as well. So you're doing life coaching through that documentary as well.
Right.
It's cool.
So let's see. I think that brings us to a final question. I said I had 2 questions for you. That was a roundabout way to get here. But
just like ask the hardest question, and then we get to the like fun question. All right.
Should it be the other way around?
Sure.
I think we want to leave it on a light note, don't we?
Yeah.
So it's just, what does stoke mean to you?
Oh, what does stoke mean to me? Oh my gosh, I immediately am like, I need something really creative. Stoke to me is wanting to get out there, push myself, be a little bit uncomfortable, and have fun while I'm doing it.
Succinct. I like it. Yes.
Yeah.
And we're...
One sentence this time.
And I assume that the thing you're most stoked for is probably and most stressed about is Outwild right now.
Yes, simultaneous stress and stoke, exactly.
So we'll have all of the links to everything in the show notes, but if people want to follow along on, you said Instagram is the primary place where you're promoting, right? So where can they follow for updates on that and just updates on you and in your life coaching business?
Yeah. Well, so you can follow me on Instagram. It's just Sanni McCandless. Or you can follow the Outwild account, which is outwild.co. And the website is also just www.outwild.co. And then my coaching business is just SanniMcCandlessCoaching.com.
Awesome. So we will have all that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Sanni, for joining us today on the Stokecast.
It's been a blast.
Thanks, guys. This was awesome. So fun to get to hang out with you guys this afternoon.
Yes, absolutely. Talk soon.
Have a good one. Bye.
What a fun chat with Sanni McCandless. We'll put all of the ways to connect with Sanni into the show notes, but of course you can always just search her on Instagram at Sanni McCandless. Also check out outwild.co. And follow the adventures or go to the adventures. You've got a couple days to still grab some tickets. But let's clear up a couple things from that episode. I know we, in conversation, probably glossed over a few things that may or may not make sense to every listener out there. So if you don't know this or haven't read it, then on the Explore Inspired blog, Emily here wrote a post about all of the climbers, right? What was it? It was a beginner's guide to rock climber lingo.
Yes.
So we're going to have you define a couple things now.
Oh my God. A couple. Okay. So Sanni says sending. You didn't send the route or you didn't send the climb that you wanted to. And that just means basically going fully through a route without falling off of it. So it's really simple. So, you know, some people see that as a mark of success and being able to send a certain route. So that's one thing.
Okay, wait, hold on. Before you get into other things that Sanni may have said, now that we're on the rock climber lingo, all right.
Is this a pop quiz?
It's a pop quiz.
Oh, God.
You wrote these.
This is a while ago. I don't remember. Okay.
What's a jug?
A jug is a hold that is relatively easy to hold on to. It kind of feels like you're placing your hand like on a car door almost, but like vertical.
Okay, and your example use is this jug feels so good.
That's obviously
That's a very Emily
from me.
thing.
It literally, I've said that multiple times.
How about the sharp end?
The sharp end of the climbing rope, it's referring to the climbing rope. It said when someone says get on the sharp end, it means you're leading a climb. So you're tying into the climb. You're going up usually a sport climb, and you're clipping in all of the rope, the quick draws and the ropes.
Okay. Elvis leg.
Elvis leg. Elvis leg is when you're on a climb. It doesn't matter if it's indoor or outdoor. It doesn't matter if it's because you're like stressed out or scared. It's when your foot is on something and you can't control it, but your leg just starts shaking like crazily, like Elvis.
Perfect. And free solo.
Okay, well, great lead in. A free solo is when you climb anything without a rope that's more than a boulder. So the reason that Jonathan brought this up is because one of the other things we wanted to clarify is Sanni talks a little bit about a film that recently came out, and that is Free Solo, a documentary about her and her partner, Alex Honnold, by Jimmy Chin, around his free solo of El Cap, which was like one of the most incredible athletic feats of all time. But she talks very openly in this interview about how that film was, obviously very vulnerable for her, and there's a lot of emotional background there. So we did want to clarify that because I don't think it was mentioned fully, besides just at a high level.
And
so that's
beta.
Beta, I have to keep, okay, beta.
We're still quizzing.
Beta is like how to climb a climb. If you give someone beta, or if you're looking at the beta, you're basically looking at the climb in front of you, whether it be indoor and outdoor, and you're trying to figure out like how your body needs to move in order to get up there. So hand hold, foot, like trying to figure out where each of your limbs needs to move in order to get up the rock or plastic rock.
Okay, so you've got a side note written here on the post under beta. It says, many times if someone is giving you unwanted advice about a climb, this is referred to as beta spraying. Don't be that guy or girl.
That's happened. Yeah.
Very relevant in terms of life coach, right? Don't try and be someone's life coach if they're not seeking you out to be their coach. Don't beta spray people.
Yes, don't life beta spray people.
But if you are looking for a coach, obviously
Sanni's a good option.
And there are plenty out there. If you search in your, local area as well, I'm sure you'll find some people who you might connect with. But Sanni seems pretty rad. She might be worth pursuing.
I might be a new client of Sanni soon. Thanks for listening. As always, keep
tagging us.
Keep tagging. Yeah, keep sharing the Stoke and let us know how you like it, and give us your feedback and reach out to us. It's at the Stokecast, right, on Instagram, and then we have, just reach out to us individually if you want to give us some feedback. E_Halls for me, and Jonathan Ronzio, both on Instagram. So let us know what you're thinking. Subscribe, share, rate reviews if you want. Like, whatever, man. It's going to be dope.
We're getting to the end of the episode. I don't know if you would have noticed that she's not. So.
Toodaloo! Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Emily Holland.
And I'm Jonathan Ronzio. We'll catch you next week with another episode of the Stokecast.